This is Chapter 7, Demand and Supply, discussion number 1, Markets and the Laws of Demand. Well, so far we've been talking a lot about how you would interact with the economy, but now we're going to, in this chapter, get into the nuts and bolts of what economics is all about, the supply and demand and how those decisions are being made. So, first of all, when we're talking about supply and demand, we need to realize that this is highly dependent on people being able to find other people that want to buy their stuff. And that is what we call a market. A market, first of all, is where freely chosen actions between buyers and sellers of goods and services get together in order to make the exchange. Now, it's not like we have a central location where everything is sold from aircraft carriers to bubble gum. There are certain places you go for certain things. For example, you don't go to the movie theater in order to purchase clothing. And you most likely don't go to the federal government and ask for a grilled cheese sandwich. And you probably don't go, well, we know you don't go to school to get entertained, you go there for education. Now, one of the things that makes all of this possible is the fact is that the exchange is voluntary. No one's making you purchase these particular items. And so buyers and sellers are exercising their economic freedom by determining the satisfactory terms for that exchange. How much money will you give me, and then I will happily give you the item that you are looking for. So, with all that in consideration, we want to talk about demand. This is what people want. And we have to realize is that there's going to be different quantities of goods and services that customers will have at various prices. Now, if I were to tell you that I had a calculus guaranteed calculator and I was selling it for $5, those of you who are taking calculus would probably leap at that opportunity. If I told you that same calculator cost $5,000, some of you might say that I'll learn how to do it. And so that is just a very wild example. It is an example of how prices can affect demand. So, how do people react to prices, and how does that affect demand? It is considered to be an inverse relationship, that as prices go up, the demand goes down. And when we measure demand, it can be measured two different ways. We can measure demand saying how many of one item will you buy based on the price, right? Because you might be buying multiples, or how many different people will buy one item based on this price or this price or this price. Now, another thing that we want to take a look at when we're talking about the law of demand is the idea of a real income effect. And this is where you have a certain amount of income and you are going out and purchasing a certain amount of items. Now, if prices go up but your income does not, then your purchasing power has decreased because the prices have gone up, not necessarily that your income has gone down. So, a real income effect, you need to make sure that we're keeping track of that, because that's when we're tracking what demand is going on, the prices and how much you want are going to be very intertwined with each other. Now, let's say that you're going to go out and buy something and you feel pretty cool about it. Hey, it's your first whatever. And then you go out and buy another one, and it's okay, it's not your first whatever, but it's still cool. And eventually you could get something over and over and over again to the point where you're like, I don't have any place to store it. I don't know how I can use this eighth one that I've got. What am I going to do with it? This is referred to as diminished marginal utility. Utility means that what power does that good or service have to satisfy your want? Now, there's no magic number to this. It's not saying that if you are really happy, it's worth a 9. There's no specific quantity. But as it is with most economic concepts, it's all about whether that number goes up or that number goes down. So I could ask you, how happy are you that you got a piece of paper to take these notes? And you could say 5. And I could go talk to your neighbor tomorrow, and he would start with the number 100. Is there that much of a difference on how pleased you are about getting a piece of paper? No. But what it is that we now then take a record of, okay, get another piece of paper, give you a ream of paper, give you a box of paper, and then will that number go up or will that number go down? So one thing you want to be aware of when the utility, don't base it on the sheer numbers, but what the effect is on the numbers. Now, if the utility is greater than the price, in other words, I can make a lot of good use out of this, and if you're going to qualify that with a number, then you say, okay, I can make good use out of this, and I think it's worth about $8 to me, and they're selling it for $7. It's probably going to be a sale. So that's how we deal with utility. But what happens when you keep on getting more of the item? We go back to that paper example. One piece of paper, cool. I give you a notebook full of paper. Hey, you've got notes for the whole year. I give you a ream of paper. Okay, well, I'll put it somewhere. Give you a box of paper. Okay, I don't use as much paper as Mr. Johnson. And then I'm going to back up a semi-load to your house. At one point, you're going to say, enough with the paper. I don't need any more. I'm not going to get any utility out of it. And so when we talk about diminished marginal utility, is that we're not going to get the same amount of satisfaction from a second one or a third one or a fifth one or a 100th one. And that's what diminished, and so we can show that on a graph. All right, and it gets to the point that people can't even give that to you for free. And the graph kind of looks like an upside down U. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this in class. This concludes discussion number 1, markets and the laws of demand, of Chapter 7, Demand and Supply.